Americans of all ages, all conditions, and all dispositions constantly form associations. Wherever, at the head of some new undertaking, you see the government in France or a man of rank in England, in the United States, you'll find an association. Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America, Chapter 5. Hi, and I'm Frank Speidel, retired emergency physician and recovering hospital administrator, and welcome to The Doctor Is In. In this show, with the help of guests, we explore healthcare in the U.S. and its interface with society. Now, I am neither an epidemiologist, infectious disease specialist, or a public health official. For guidance in healthcare decisions, I recommend you consult your primary physician, your state and local health departments, and the CDC. As I wrote today's script, we had lost over 942,000 Americans to the COVID pandemic. There is much to learn from this pandemic and much to fix, but also much to celebrate. For we have seen the best in the human spirit in these worst of times. Throughout the United States, in these damning, demanding days, those coughing, those short of breath, those feeling ill are transported to emergency departments. They arrive on nights and weekends, not just Monday through Friday at set hours like 8 to 4:30. They arrive around the clock and on holidays too. On Thanksgiving, the stories of many in emergency services here are not the ones Uncle Fred tells while asking for someone to pass the gravy. Yet I challenge anyone to show better care delivered anywhere than what we receive in the United States in the emergency departments. The men and women transporting patients, staffing and supporting our nation's emergency department during these dark times have been radiant. In times of swirling darkness, these individuals have been enduring beacons of competence and caring. It is their glory to relentlessly be the first to treat all ages, all illnesses, and all injuries at all times. From the transporting EMT to the staff and supporting personnel of the emergency department, they are all credentialed professionals. I was fortunate to see the specialty of emergency medicine grow from the you can always work in the ED stepchild of medicine to a recognized, rigorous, respected discipline. This transformation was not driven by government, but by individuals, by physicians such as James D. Mills, John Wittgenstein, and John Rupke, and others, who saw a need, had a vision, and acted. When reflecting on this evolution of the specialty of emergency medicine, I was reminded of de Tocqueville's essay, Democracy in America. In 1835, this visiting Frenchman observed, Americans formed associations to provide services and initiatives that their European counterparts looked to their governments and authority figures to provide. To be sure, licensing to practice medicine is uniformly provided by the states, but specialty certification and the credentialing of practitioners is done by agencies and boards formed by the professionals themselves, and in my opinion, to a more rigorous and meaningful standards than by states in their medical licensing. I would argue that the excellence, the ever-renewing excellence in the care we receive in emergency departments in the United States is due to the efforts of individuals in forming and sustaining groups such as the American College of Emergency Physicians and the American Board of Emergency Medicine. I am honored today to have as our guest Dr. Marianne Gausche-Hill, current president of the American Board of Emergency Medicine. That is just the start of Dr. Gausche-Hill's achievements and recognition. Dr. Gausche-Hill is the medical director for Los Angeles County EMS, that is Emergency Medical Services. She is a professor of clinical medicine pediatrics at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, and EMS fellowship director at the Harbor UCLA Medical Center. She is nationally and internationally known for her work as an EMS researcher, and educator, and for her leadership in the fields of EMS and pediatric emergency medicine. In 2004, she was awarded the National Education Award in Emergency Medicine by the American College of Emergency Physicians. In 2005, she was awarded the Martha Bushmore-Fallis APLS Award from the American Academy of Pediatrics. In 2007, she was awarded the Emergency Medical Services for Children Heroes Award for Lifetime Achievement by the Health Resources and Services Administration. In 2008, she was named one of the Heroes of Emergency Medicine by ACEP. In 2012, she was awarded the Stephen Miller Education and Mentorship Award by the American Academy of Pediatrics. In 2013, she was awarded Woman of the Year by the National Association of Professional Women. And also in 2013, the Distinguished Services EMS Medal by the state of California. In 2014, she was awarded the Outstanding Contribution in EMS Award, as well as Speaker of the Year by the American College of Emergency Physicians. Dr. Gausche-Hill, welcome to The Doctor Is In. And what did I do? What did I get wrong? And what do you do in your spare time?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And I loved your opening.
Thank you. Did you always want to be a doctor?
I did. Yeah. When I was young, I told my mom when I was 3 that I wanted to be the first woman on the moon and a doctor to boot. And I almost became an astronaut. I actually had signed up and applied, but I developed vertigo and so could not pursue that for obvious reasons. You can't go up in a spaceship if you're disoriented from vertigo. So I had to set that aside, and then I continued on my quest to become a physician. So here I am, many years later.
What got you interested in emergency medicine? I don't consider that a kind and gentle field.
It's interesting. I was very much interested in the care of children and also in resuscitation. My father passed away when I was 18 of cardiac arrest. And I thought, there's got to be something that we can do for these patients. And so anyway, thus began the quest. And I actually did my internship at Harbor UCLA in Torrance, California. And that I got to see everything and just figure things out. And it was so exciting that I opted for a career in emergency medicine. And then my love of children came around again, and I became trained in pediatric emergency medicine, which was interesting. And at that time, there were no real fellowships for emergency physicians, but through a federal grant, mentor, James Speidel, had me do 2 years. And so I became the first fellowship trained emergency physician to be boarded in pediatric emergency medicine in the country. So, and that was pure serendipity, but it aligned all my interests. So it worked out.
I find it fascinating that you had the interest in being an astronaut. Yes. And then I follow up with the question, what got you interested in emergency medicine? A friend of mine made the observation that she thought that emergency physicians were basically fighter pilots. They had the greatest egos because they were willing to take on anybody, anything, anytime. And if you have the desire to leave gravity, I think you certainly have that bring it on attitude that you so need in emergency medicine. I was always proud that the boards in emergency medicine seem to be setting standards, to be leading the way in testing that drives growth and development, along with evaluating competence. Am I delusional in this, Doctor?
No, not at all. I mean, there's several things I think that we could talk about that are important. And one is the mission of our board, the American Board of Emergency Medicine, is to ensure the highest standards in emergency medicine. And that we don't take that lightly. So that means, we want to create the best form of certification as well as continuing certification. And this is something we continue to improve on and take on, right? And lean in. And so we started a whole new continuing certification program. So why would we do that? Well, we realized that just taking a test once every 10 years might not cut it, that it's important to have ongoing state-of-the-art, information so that you continue to improve your practice. So we developed it's called My EM Cert for my, emergency medicine certification. And the goal really is to make all of our practicing emergency physicians better doctors. And how do you do that? And what we do is we have more of a formative approach where we present information in certain topic areas, and then they learn from that and then can adapt that on the next time, they're faced with that particular clinical scenario. And the other thing that we're doing, which is really fun, is we have a whole key advances panel. So we're taking, and I know this, that when you take any advancement in medicine, it takes years to translate it into practice, right? And so they say the average is somewhere about 17 years to translate, right, into practice. So what we're trying to do with Key Advances is kind of gather that information, put it in, a type of package that's digestible, and then push that out as part of our continuing certification program, so physicians can see, how can they be better doctors? And it's really exciting. It's kind of more, the way I look at it is, it's more we're partners in this, right? We want to help you do the best job you can and empower you with the information that you need to be a great doctor. And many doctors do a lot of this on their own, don't get me wrong, but it is nice to know that this program, is continuing certification program, is designed to do just that.
Harkening back to the analogy to ED docs having a certain fighter pilot mentality.
My dad was a pilot, Air Force pilot. Yeah, flew in Korea, and he served in Vietnam as well. Anyway.
The apple does not fall far from the tree, Professor. You are certainly a worthy successor to that great heritage. Going back to that on the edge kind of approach to things and being out in front. You mentioned about it takes 17 years. Sometimes I think emergency medicine has been ahead of the curve in many things. One of my formative experiences when I was right out of residency was a tragedy of having a young man in his 40s come in with an aneuroseptal infarct with his wife and 2 children on a beautiful day. And back then in 1980, we did not have an awful lot of interventions to offer. We had morphine, we had oxygen, and we had inappropriate antiarrhythmics. Myself and a wonderful cardiologist were at his bedside for 3 hours, and he went right in front of our eyes. And that's a tragedy. All death is a tragedy, but that was a horrendous one. And I remembered later in the 80s when people started to talk about thrombolytics. And there was sparse literature, but there was lots of phone calls. And I remember the first time that I used thrombolytics and I watched everything go back to normal. And I thought, wow, this is, I wish I had it 5 years ago, 6 years ago. When I ended my career, my functioning career, I was a hospital CEO, and we had a very vigorous cath lab that we were busting times all the time. Under 60 minutes became our personal standard. What changes we got to see. But I remember that the first time when people heard we were doing thrombolytics down in the ED, boy, there was a lot of heat coming back from that.
Right.
What was your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, that has been my experience as well, right? My father died of an MI, right? And there were no AEDs at that time. There were no, it was just manual defibrillation. But my experience as a physician has been like yours. We were pushing the envelope in the ED by doing thrombolytics. And should we be doing that? And then PCI, or percutaneous, cardiac intervention, and that you can improve, you just remove the clot, and the person goes from literally near death to the clot is removed and their cardiac function comes back. I mean, look what's happened with stroke.
Yeah.
When I started as a medical director at LA County, I realized that there were all the latest stroke trials were coming out showing that thrombectomy improved outcomes significantly. Okay. And so I thought, how do we get this therapy to people in Los Angeles County? So, working with stakeholders, we did it. We looked at, geographically what we needed. We had hospitals participate. And in 2018, we launched our two-tiered system that went from 40% access for Angelinos to the embolectomy, the therapy where you pull out the clot, right? And they go from, not moving the right side of their body, not being able to speak, to eating dinner by, you know what I mean? So we did that. And so from 40% to 93%, and literally a minute after we implemented that program was our first save, a 70-year-old woman who couldn't talk, couldn't move the right side of her body. And the family said, we want her to go to this hospital. And the paramedic said, no, ma'am, we've got a new program here. We're going to take you to this hospital. And I met her and her family, and she was completely neurologically intact from being unable to move an entire side of her body and unable to talk. So by dinner, literally by dinner that evening. So, I mean,
this is a celebration, Professor. I mean, this is why the Spaces lost was the Angelinos gain. I bet there's a few fights when you had to tell people, we're going to bypass your hospital for the sake of the patient.
Right. And we did. I mean, we understood there's financial. And so, trying to balance those can be a little bit challenging, but I think just listening to everybody and then coming up with the best plan that we could. I feel very proud of that. And I know we've saved a lot of people through that program. And it's just, it was one of those things like, what did you used to do, right? Somebody had a stroke and you'd say, okay, well, it looks like you didn't have a brain bleed, so give you an aspirin and good luck in rehab. I mean, there was nothing else to do. So with this, to be able to potentially take people from an entirely terribly morbid condition that often leads to mortality over time to being functionally normal, I hate to say it, it was a no-brainer that we had to do it. And so it's just a matter of saying, we're going to do it. And if you have conviction, people follow.
If you have conviction and evidence and are willing to take the heat.
Right.
That's the combination of things. And don't ever doubt, I never doubted, you made a difference. What challenges do you see ahead for the American Board of Emergency Medicine? I'm going to anecdotally throw something out. Way back in my misspent youth when I was a recovered hospital administrator, the number of pseudo boards that popped up that would try to get credentialed was terrifying. The only thing more frightening was the attorney letters that would come when your organization would refuse to credential somebody because you didn't recognize those special boards. You see anything like that?
We still do. I will tell you that I think the ABMS community, American Board of Medical Specialties, so right, of which ABEM, I'm the president of one of those boards. I think they do such a good job. They're recognized as the national standard now, and there's been a number of legal battles relative to that. And so far, we have won those battles. And I think the key thing is that we take the responsibility very seriously, right? So we address all stakeholders and the patient, the public at large, our diplomats who are the board certified physicians, the subspecialties, credentialers, all of that are all part of what goes into the mix, with the idea that we want to provide the best emergency care possible. And in order to do that, you just have to ensure a high standard. And it means you got to essentially utilize all the tools, the research, the evidence, everything to create a program that really sets the standard. And I think that's what you got to do. You've got to be the best. And
I think the ABEM can sit back and say they have been the best and they have been the tip of the spear. Would it be fair for me to say that not all medical specialty boards have the same rigor that you have at the ABEM?
Well, each are different. We pride ourselves in just the amount of rigor that we have related to all of our items. In fact, when you look overall, we're the only ABMS board that is certified by the National Commission on Certifying Agencies. So we in CCA, so we're the only one to do that with. And why is that? Well, one, it's hard to get that accreditation, right? So for somebody to say, yeah, you really are doing the best job. So I can say that we're doing a phenomenal job. Others do too, and we learn from each other, other boards, frankly. Not every board does it the same way, and some have come under a little more fire than others, to say the least. But the good news is that it is kind of a community, and since we can talk to one another and interact with one another, we can get best practices from each. But I feel very proud being associated with this organization, because I really know that our goal is to the best we can, with the goal in mind of really helping our emergency medicine colleagues do the best they can do. And we all are practicing. I'm still working shifts, Right?
I'm laughing at that because that's the way it should be. I often thought that medical staffs were in trouble when they lost, forgive me for phrasing it like this, silverbacks. The silverback who keeps the rest of the troop of gorillas safe because they've been there, they've done that. I'm willing to bet that you've gotten wrapped around many things at your hospitals that your experience, your veteran status is the asset that keeps everyone safe.
Thank you for that. Now and then, experience matters. There's times when I recognize things and, I can do it quickly because I've been there, I've done that. And that's a great feeling. You feel like it's worth it.
And one of your great challenges is you are deep in education. It's a special moment when you're watching your intern put the chest tube in, that you could do a lot quicker and you'd feel a lot more comfortable. But that's part of being a teacher, isn't it?
It is. Sometimes patience is a virtue there, but I think patient safety also, you do both of those, right?
Which you do. And you always have to inform them. And you have to inform the patient of the team, exactly the members, and how they're going to be providing care. This is the integrity of our specialty. We're getting close to the end, but I want to ask you, how has the pandemic challenged emergency medicine in teaching and in practice?
Well, it's challenged emergency medicine in so many ways. One, just, you can take personally, right? Since I'm working in the emergency department, I always felt like I was going to come home and infect my family. So that was a challenge for healthcare providers, that they were afraid that they were going to not only get sick themselves on a personal level, but on another level to impact your family. And you just didn't want that to happen. So that created tension, right? And stress. Then it's just working long hours and being involved in pandemic planning. Literally, I was on 12-hour-a-day Zoom calls, and then I'd go work my shift, So it created some weariness in the healthcare sector. It's just day after day was a real challenge. And yet people stood up and they did it. And I'm so proud of all of my colleagues for hanging in there as best they can. Just do what you have to do to make things happen. And that's one thing that I can say about emergency physicians. They just get it done. It's not like, oh, I got to think about this, or I'm going to worry about the consequence. No, you get it done, and then you move on, because that's what it takes. And so I think there was a lot of stress, financial, personal, health-wise, weariness, and then we were trying to digest information. I say it's like swallowing, taking information from a fire hose. What's the latest, right? What should we do? So
somebody says, just swallow this cinder block, everything's going to be okay. These have been challenging times. One of the reasons I was happy and I wanted to have you on was because the heroes, emergency medicine, 24/7, 7 days a week in ever-changing, uncertain things, yet they come back time after time. I am so thrilled and proud of what you and your colleagues have done. It's been just ennobling to see it. Last question, Professor. Tell me, who are your heroes been in emergency medicine? Do you have any?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. Just because there's so many, right? Certainly our pioneers, and you've mentioned some of them. John Wigginstein was an amazing individual, very professional and outstanding physician. I think one of my other heroes is Earl Reisdorf. Who was involved at that time, and he's currently the executive director at ABEM, and he's just a brilliant man. He's just been there and pushed the specialty in so many ways. So I have a lot of pride in being able to work with him. And then I would be remiss to not say Jim Speidel, who was my mentor, who taught me a lot about pushing the envelope and being a little bit edgy and deliberate in order to get things done as a part of advocacy. And I really appreciated that lesson. It helps me say, yeah, it's worth it to lean in and push on some things that need to change and change for the better. So hope that helps. And you're a colleague.
Well, I was fortunate. I had people like Dave Wagner and a guy who used to moonlight for me, Gary Fleischer. Ever heard of him?
Oh, Gary. Yeah, Gary and Steve Ludwig, man.
Steve. Oh, my goodness, yes. These people taught more than the science of medicine. They taught the art of medicine. They remain giants. Again, Doctor, I cannot thank you enough. And I have to share with you, guess what? You've become the people that have taught you. I guarantee you there are generations of med students and residents. Ask that question, they're going to mention Dr. Gausche-Hill. Thanks very much for being our guest today, Doctor. And for those out there, thank you very much for watching The Doctors In, and be safe.